It's a plane. Oh, it's just my dad. My dad. My dad.
We would sit there and talk, and then she would have one of the boys take me off that phone. It's like there were at least 30 houses on each side of the terrace, but it seemed like at some point, like only half of the terrace knew one another. I think there were about two people who lived down the other end of the terrace who actually interacted with everybody else, but everybody else down the end was like strangers. But that whole heroin thing, man, moved in, rapidly. Started getting a lot of houses broken in. They broke in our house one time, man. Me and my sister upstairs in the suite. My mother worked the overnight. And these jokers broke into the house, sat down at the kitchen table, ate all the candy. Yeah, they ate all the sweets. It's a big thing for heroin addicts to eat a lot of sweets. They didn't come up there and mess with us, thank God. But they took everything. They took the television, they took the stereo, they took the peanut butter and jelly, they did everything, man. And my mother came home the next morning like, who's living? Sometimes we have, the neighbors from hell who you wish would move, get kicked out, don't pay the rent or something. You got to go. Yeah, but again, that heroin thing, man, just robbed the whole environment, man, of a lot. But we spent many days in that field across the street from the house playing so many games of baseball. I was glad we lived across from there because I couldn't go off the terrace, but I could always go across the street because my mother could see where I was. So we played a lot of football, a lot of baseball. Hell, I didn't weigh but a couple of ounces, but it was always fun. I said I wasn't going to make listen to another love song, right? I didn't want to do a love song at all. But it's unavoidable, man. As a human being, you come into contact with people every day, man. And some you connect with, some you reject. Your spirit just rejects your God. Just get away. It's like you run, Forrest, run. That kind of mindset, right? But when you find somebody, man, that who's really vibing with, right? That's the easy thing, especially if you got a caretaker person. They just like ignore all the problem children, But anywho, so when you think about love is, man, it's an action word, right? And you just have to learn not just how to love somebody the way you want to love them, but you have to learn how to love somebody the way they need to be loved. You have to protect them, baby. In this place, nuts, berries, and fruits, rivers of milk and honey, silk brocade, soup, paradoxical enlightenment, spirits running free, creations in pairs, just one made like me. A servant to the core, toiling hand and foot, morning dew upon my pocket, it clings to me like soot, prostrating on the daily, all praises due, balance and tranquility, he said she will bring to you. If three of us together formulate the twine, a cord cannot be broken, relies upon the divine. It's not the voice of reason that tore us from this place, an unconscionable into intuition made us have a taste. I'm not lost without you. With you, I'm away. I want love no more. Been married before. Here together, trying to pass your tests, spreading seeds abroad, mankind just a mess. At odds with one another, lost sight of our purpose. Spirits in disarray, buried beneath our surface. Masquerading representatives, no fear of the one above. Traumatic indentations, scarring the ones we love. Ordained from conception to care for and protect. What he gave in her from him would help us live correct. With free will in our being and it gone unchecked. Internal strife and need to wipe more than one I did select. The appointed will bring us guidance. Heed the words they say. Patiently persevering. Remembrance the only way. I'm not lost without you. With you, I went away. I want love no more. Been married before. Hey, y'all. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Daddy's Right Here Live. I'm your host, as always, Sabir Aline. Malicious covert games to play. Selfishly combative, compromise was not your way. Vacillating spirit, cognitive dissonance in command. Reject my role of leader, desecrate me as a man. Loving me is easy, display attributes of him. Bad lady from the start, married life to you was grim. Treated like an object, placed upon a shelf. Used me when you wanted to, thought all about yourself. I'm not lost without you. With you, I went away. I want love no more. Been married before. You know, it's like Tina once said, what's love got to do? A lot of people debated that. But Tina was right. You see, you got to learn how to not only love a person the way you know how to love, but you have to love them the way they need to be loved. You know, I can tell you how to love me, how to handle me. Yeah, because you got to know how to handle me, right? You got to learn how to handle my heart, my mind, my spirit, right? You have to have a go-to source, you know, the same one that I use. Yeah, God. Because if that ain't your go-to source, well, this is, you got to go away source, because this ain't going to last, baby. Uh-huh.
What's happening, y'all? What's going on? What's new? What's popping? It's New Year's. Yeah. One ended. We're nine, 6 days into the next one. What has changed? What's different? What did you bring into this year with you? Did you bring some of the same stuff? I know you did. I know you did because you didn't plan. You didn't plan. You just knew it was coming, and the only thing you planned for was to party. I know. That's usually what happens. You keep talking about it, and you keep holding on to old stuff, and you start the new year off with the same shenanigans, the same people, same places, same things. Nothing changed. Everything is on and popping as usual, right? You pissed off all over again, all up in your feelings, all over again about something that you failed to address. It's up to you. You knew the relationship was bad last year. You're still in it this year. You hoping it's going to get better, hoping things are going to change. Well, if they ain't changed at all this time, what makes you think it's going to change this year? What is going to be different about this year that person is going to realize, that person is going to have an epiphany that you are a good woman, that you are a good man, right? When do you think that's going to happen? Well, they already knew that. That's why they're latching on to you. They're already relying upon your love for them, that undying passion. They're already relying upon that, right? They know you're not going to go anywhere. It's just like these damn political parties. You're either Republican or Democrat. You don't have anywhere to go. So you choose one and you ride on that one until the wheels fall off. Then you help put the damn wheels back on, right? Mr. or Miss Fix It, right? That's what us caretakers do. We try to fix other people's lives. We try to do things to be available for people, right? And then when people don't succumb to those wishes, those expectations, then you all up in your feelings. You all up in your feelings, but why? Why are you all up in your feelings? Because they doing what they doing them? They doing what they want to do? Now you mad? What you mad for? That's the question you got to keep asking yourself. What are you mad for? What are you upset about? Is it disappointment that they're just not doing what you want them to do? Y'all like my cup? See my cup? See what my baby bought for me? My cup. I love this cup. So when you grow up in certain environments, you become acclimated to just accepting certain things, certain behaviors from people, right? You just say this is the way it's going to be, and I'm going to tolerate it. I'm going to accept it um, because this is just the way it is, isn't it? Is it just the way it is? Is it just the way it's supposed to be? As a child, you're forced to take this kind of stuff. You're forced to deal with the parents and their bad behavior, perceived or actual. The family members who come over with their same shenanigans. The one they always talk about. You know, here come Uncle James. Yeah, he's drunk. He come in here, and every time he come over here, he get touchy feely. And don't nobody say nothing about that. It's a whole nother show, right? Nobody says anything about that. You just deal with it, and it is what it is. You have the family member, that comes over, goes into the fridge like it's theirs, fix themselves, food that's for the house, drink up your juice and all that kind of stuff. You got the loud, obnoxious one that comes over and they're always loud. Every time they open their mouth, they seem like they have a bullhorn in their hand. And it's just loud. And you just looking at them like something's wrong with them. They're crazy. What's his problem? Or you got the one who always comes over, want to sit you down, and want to tell you what you need to do with your life. Your life. So we get acclimated to, some of these family dysfunctions. You have one parent who's stern, rigid, always on top of something, always in the way. Hey, get this and get that. Well, what do you, hey. Then you have the parent who is loud and, and always screaming at you, always using profanity towards you. And if you grow up as a male in a single parent environment that is driven by, a woman, it forms a perception of the female gender. You begin to see females in a particular way, regardless of their role to you in their life. If you grow up as a little girl in a single parent home, and it's a male, it's the father who is the primary caretaker, you get a perception of males. And those things play out in our lives years down the road. And we don't even know this. We don't see these kind of things presenting in our adult lives, and we don't associate those things with our childhood as often as we should. Everything about us is stems from a conditioning of an environment as a child. That's why childhood trauma is of the utmost importance to address in treatment, whether it's psychotherapy treatment or whether it's cognitive behavior treatment. We have to look at our childhood. And there are many things that we forget about our childhood. And there are many reasons why we forget those things. Part of the developmental stages, you go from you go from the womb and beyond. Can you remember what's happening in the womb? What happened in the womb? At any age, do you know? Right? There's a whole study on human consciousness, especially from the point of when the child is in the womb, what's happening in the womb, about the child's consciousness to that world that it's in. The child in the womb is not oblivious to what's happening outside of the womb, in the sense that the, it hears sounds. It becomes acclimated to the voice of both parents are there. It hears the mom's voice more prevalently because it's within the mother. But then there's the voice that it hears, of others around it. Does the father talk to her, the fetus? Does the child, does the parent, touch the stomach when the child moves? Does the parent feel it? The outside parent, not the mother. What kind of relationship is there? Is there an awareness that child has? Is there an awareness that child has, and what does that child experience in the womb from those external things? Right? We know that everything that the mother takes in, the child takes in, whether it's food, whether it's stress, whether it's anything that they breathe, anything that they eat, smell, or anything, they're experiencing that. But there's also the part of the child that is developing in relationship to the father. There's an awareness in there. There's a consciousness there. There's something. There's an innate connection, because there are 23 chromosomes contributed by each parent. So depending on the age of the parents, depending on the health conditions, the spiritual conditions, the mental health conditions, all those things are significant to the growth and development of that fetus. They don't just start at a certain age. The chromosomes have already been integrated, already enmeshed. It's already formed. It's already happening. So by the time the child comes out of the womb, the child has some awareness of self. It's already begun to uh, come into its personality, its characteristics, uh, what values and beliefs are present at that time. Understanding that there's a connection to the creator because that's a creation. So there's still a consciousness, there's a human consciousness that already exists. Children are taught to hate, right? So anybody in this world who hates another because of the color of the skin, because of, that's the first thing we look at. That's not even within the child's understanding. That's taught. That is taught. When you start factoring in, culture, religion, those kind of values and beliefs, right? Those things are taught. Those things are taught, right? God is not teaching that fetus religion. Religion is something that was created by man, right? Regardless of your interpretation of the books, the books that are being sent. Books are guidance. It's not a voice that, like you see in the Ten Commandments through the burning bush. Things were inscribed upon the hearts of those delivering, because you can't compromise the heart. You can compromise the mind, but that's a whole nother show. Uh, but in terms of trauma and understanding the conditioning of the human being and how things are interpreted, how the world around you as a child is interpreted. When you get to the point that you no longer want to depend on the caretaker to do and to give and to, you begin to take control of those things. You want to hold that spoon yourself because I see how this works, right? I'm going to walk up the steps by myself. I see how this works. I don't need you for that, right? So that means you got to keep on building and building and building on the child's understanding and knowledge of things that you do in the way that you do them. And the child begins to show you how, no, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it this way. I like eating with the spoon backwards. I like turning it upside down and eating with the back. Let me do it my way. And then they begin to interpret your behavior that you put upon them, stopping them from doing it their way. They begin to form an opinion about you. Yeah. Who are you to take my spoon from me? I was doing just fine eating it this way. Why do I have to eat it that way? So they begin to get an interpretation of right versus wrong, good versus bad, based on what you, the caretaker, puts upon them. So now I'm being bad because my spoon is upside down, right side up. Is that bad? What did you tell me that was? Did you tell me that was wrong? Did you tell me that was stupid? What did you tell me about that? When I pee on myself because I don't know how to use the potty, what do you tell me about what I did? What happened? As your expectation changes because the child is older now and you expect for the child to say, because they know how to talk, you want them to say potty. And when they don't, they just go on themselves. How do you address that? And the way you address that, do they associate that response, that reaction from you with other stuff that you have done, that they have done, that you have addressed it in this capacity? How are they beginning to see themselves? Hell, I peed in the bed up to about 13, 14. My mother tried everything in the book. But what she wasn't aware of were all of those things that I just talked about in the show this morning. Things that preceded my birth, the level of stress that she was experiencing while carrying me because of the toxic relationship that she was in with my father. Those are the kind of things that none of us take in consideration. You don't know the circumstance, the conditions that the mother was in. And all those things got transferred into her system. Therefore, my anxiety and depression was a result of what? Her own conditioning of things that she experienced in her childhood. Those things that she experienced, and had to deal with during her pregnancy. Desiring to get out of that situation, but having to stay in that situation. What does that feel like to you, a person who's not pregnant, a person who's not carrying a child? What does that feel like to you? So all of these interpretations, all these things that happen in childhood are how we see the world around us and how we act toward those things. And we were already conditioned and taught how to respond, how to react to those things. But when you have a differing opinion, a differing perspective than the caretaker who formed and shaped that concept for you, it becomes a problem. And this is where pet peeves typically come into play. They don't just happen. They become part of your conditioning, part of our conditioning. So this article on Psychology Today, Adverse Childhood Experiences, 10 pet peeves that could be based on childhood trauma, that could be based on childhood trauma. One of the things that we don't like to do is look at ourselves. You can't find resolve. You can't have a happy, fulfilling life if you are not looking at yourself. If you are just trying to live life and put things in place and put people in place to accommodate your needs, and you think that that's happiness, why are you still miserable inside then? Why do you have bad days? Why do you walk around filled with anger, resentment, fear, guilt, shame, embarrassment? If you are happy, if you are truly seeking to bring resolve within yourself. It's one thing to have things happen, events happen in the course of the day, and it just, throws a monkey wrench and things. Yeah, that's irritating, that's frustrating. Yeah, anger is a natural human response. But if you are walking around every day, all day, in a condition of anything other than happiness, peace, serenity, you have to ask yourself what's going on. And if you feel like that, what are you imposing upon the other person, the other persons who are in that circle? The people you live with, the people you're married to, the people you work with, so on and so forth. What are you putting upon them? Right? You have to look at those things. So these pet peeves and an adverse childhood experience, we do what's called an ACE questionnaire when we bring people into treatment. And this is a tool we use is an adverse childhood experience assessment. And people fill it out. They check off yes, no, 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 no. And I can tell you 99.99999% of people just check off no, 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 no. Because people don't look at their childhoods. People don't look at their conditioning, from a caretaker all the way up, beyond abuse. They can recognize abuse. Some shut abuse out, therefore, that the answer is no, because they want to shut it out. They will move on. They use substances and other things to keep on forgetting about those things. But you will never be able to fully free yourself from your conditioning that keeps you at bay until you look at your childhood and how you see the world around you, right? So being interrupted, ignored, left waiting, some of those things, affect you in adult life and you don't really see it. You really don't see it. Like sitting on a step every Saturday, every other Saturday, waiting on the parent to come get you. Whether you're waiting for your father or whether you're waiting for your mother to come pick you up and they never show up. They never show up. And then, you get the phone call, or that the primary caretaker tells you, oh, well, your mom had to work late again. Your dad, had to work late again. Well, his job had, called him out of town, so he's going to be out of town for, for a little bit. But he'll see you. He loves you. She loves you. Yeah, they love you. Then after a while, you get tired of telling those lies. Listen, he in jail. Listen, she done had a mental breakdown. She in the hospital. She's in the psych ward. You can't see her now. She done lost her damn mind, and so on and so forth. Right. So these things, that plays out in your adult life. You just don't see it. Like when somebody is late, they haven't even not shown up. They're just late. What it is that you go through because they're late, and you automatically start overthinking this. Here we go again. Somebody that I love, somebody that I deeply care for, is disappointing me again. They're abandoning me again. Being stood up is just not a good thing. You really take it to heart. You really like fall apart because it happened, forgetting that things happen. But when you don't deal with that part of your trauma, everything seems to be disastrous. It's catastrophic, and you react as such to the situation. So when they do get there, you already stuck in the emotion of your childhood from when you were abandoned before, and it takes you a minute to adjust. But that minute that you take to adjust in the course of that interaction, this dinner date that you guys are having, is taking you 45, 50 minutes maybe to just adjust, to readjust from that which is in your head, because your thinking dictates your actions. So here, this person who came late, who is trying to be, apologetic in their actions, is talking and being nice, and they all hunky dory, and you still stuck on your issues of abandonment. So by the time you come out of it, they are out of where they were and trying to be, excitable, enjoyable, presentable in the situation, and now they've lost the taste in their mouth. And now your expectation is that they continue with that, not even looking at the fact of how you just reacted for the whole 45 minutes or an hour because you couldn't move past your stuff. You see how this works? You see how childhood trauma works? But you also see how the blame game comes into play, because it's not my fault, right? You still beat me up because I was late and I was apologetic about it, but you still stuck in your stuff. And instead of you recognizing and identifying and accepting that that's your stuff, and maybe even having a conversation with that person about the fact that it's your stuff, it's your unresolved stuff, you rather downplay it and make them the victim of your less endearing traits. And then when they react to it, now it's their fault. Now you're being victimized because they're reacting to your negativity. This is how so many relationships go, because people don't want to take the time to look at themselves. This is happening for a reason. Is it really that other person, or is it you? Key points to the article. Those who grew up in dysfunctional environments may struggle more deeply emotionally due to internal triggers, right? Who doesn't grow up in a dysfunctional environment, right? Because everybody got stuff, and everybody's not dealing with their stuff. So the perception is that it's dysfunctional. Okay. Learning about one's trauma wounds is less about blame and more about self-understanding. Waiting, being interrupted, and being ignored are common pet peeves or triggers or triggers, right? These are things that cause you to react negatively, to react inappropriately. And a lot of times, unbeknownst to you, unconsciously, you're reacting and you don't even see it. That's the thing about the human psyche. You have to get in touch with your subconscious. Because if you're not in touch with your subconscious, only thing that you're going to be focused on is what you are consciously aware of. And it's always going to be the other person. It's never going to be you. Because you don't have a connection to your innateness. You don't have a connection to the things that are festering within you. You're only focusing on what just happened. And it's good to be in the here and now. It's a great thing to be in the here and now. But if the here and now is not a good look, if it's negative, then there's something about that here and now that you have to look at and in regards to your adverse childhood experiences. Right now, in this moment, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. Why? Because I shouldn't be, but I am. And instead of what is it about this person that is sickening me? What is it about what just took place? The incident, the statement, the gesture. What is it about those particular things that triggered me to act this way? Being interrupted is a big one because, you know, when you don't feel like you're being heard, or, you know, when you don't feel like there's a value of what you're bringing to the table, it's easy to go into that mode. You know, I was one real good for that for many years of my life because of my own adverse child experience. You know, communication with my mother about particular things, but then there was one particular event that took place with her and I that was a turning point, you know, in my relationship with her and my desire to continue to want to live there. And I ultimately, not long after that, moved out. I didn't have anywhere to go. I went to the street, but it was that one particular incident that happened, and I'm like, oh, just like you never listened to me. You like I'm telling you that I didn't do a particular thing, and you know you're not even hearing that I didn't do that. And that it was a lot of that. It was a lot of things that my sister did. Right? There were a lot of things that happened that like you it was wrongly interpreted. Right? And then years later, it's like, yeah, you know, remember when and I realized after you had left that it was actually this and not you messing with it. You know, it was a situation like that. But forgiveness is not even on the table here. It's not even about whether I forgave or not. If something that happened is something that happened, I move on. But it doesn't mean because I moved on that it was forgotten. So if I'm having a conversation with you about a particular thing and I don't feel like you're listening and I begin to talk over you, that's what that stems from. Oh, and it's not an excuse, but it's a reason. And it's something that I need to be aware of when I'm interacting with somebody and I begin to talk over that person. Because in that moment, I'm feeling like you're not listening. You're trying to be understood and you're not trying to understand. We always use that cliche that it's better to understand than to be understood. It certainly is. But if we're interacting with each other and there's a part that I need for you to hear in order for us to bring resolve for this, or I'm trying to give you a directive about a particular thing. No, in that moment, I'm not trying to understand. I'm trying to be understood, right? And that will keep that interaction going back and forth, being unresolved. So regardless of whether my role in it, if I want you to follow a directive, I need to understand what it is that you're seeing or what it is that you're hearing or what it is that you're feeling in a moment, because I may be projecting something that right, wrong, or indifferent, it needs to be delivered in another way so you can hear me. So you got to create a win-win situation and stop creating a win-lose situation, because ultimately that's what that creates. So you begin to seek out getting your needs met, forgetting about the needs of the other person, and you're both doing the same exact thing, and there's nothing going to change out of that. So in order for the other person to feel like they're in fact being heard as well as you're being heard, you need to be aware of, this is my trauma, this is my trigger, this is what's happening right now. Let me hush and let me hear that other person out. And during that time, it gives me an opportunity to stop, to listen to them, and approach the situation in a different tone. That's growth. That's how you address your trauma, right? So back to the article. Let's go to this list of things that they have here, because there are 10 pet peeves, and we're not going to get through all 10 today, but we're going to get through some, a portion of them. I like to have, good, solid content, especially when, I'm trying to lead you in the direction of self discovery. So you can hear from my perspective, a clinical perspective, personal perspective, and also from another perspective, which is an article in Psychology Today. Which are very good articles, to read, to understand self. So the first thing that it has on the list, it says childhood trauma can affect our development and shape our reactivity to subsequent stressors. Here are 10 of the most common emotional activators or triggers among childhood family trauma survivors that I have witnessed. And this is Denise and Baldwin 2017. Number one on that list, being cut off in traffic or in line can trigger the wound of being pushed aside like you do not matter or are even seen or valued. Think about that for a minute. Being cut off in traffic. How do you respond to being cut off in traffic? Now, these pet peeves are, some are related. Some could be related to childhood trauma. Some, not all. Be very clear on it. Some. But don't dismiss it. Look at it. You just got cut off in traffic. Where did this value come from? That you react negatively to it. That you have these what we call cognitive distortions. The can't standitis, the mustitis, the shoulditis, because those are called cognitive distortions. Anytime you think that somebody must, follow what it is that you follow, that's a setup for a disaster, because it'd be a good idea if they did. It would be healthier, it'd be safer if you did it this way, if you just, use your signal and wait for the opportunity. But, you just cut me off. Were you exceeding the speed limit? Was the person driving beside you in the opposite lane with their signal on? Did you see their signal? Why didn't you let them come in? You saw them, but you decided that you wanted to keep right on driving and make them wait. Why? Is that mature behavior? Is that responsible behavior? Where did it come from? Right now, we're just talking about childhood, the possibilities, that some of this stuff may be as a result of, and people are going to automatically dismiss it. I mean, this is the natural thing to do. Just dismiss it. When you don't want to do work on yourself, when you don't want to change, when you don't want to see how you are shaped the way you are, this is going to be rejected. It's going to be rejected. The belief came from somewhere. The value came from somewhere. You need to find out where it came from. Being cut off in traffic or in line, right? There was recently an incident at the, I think it was Costco's, right? Where a person got out of their car because another person drove around everybody else because obviously there was a pump open. Nobody moved toward the pump. This person went on around and came and jumped on in. One of the drivers in the line went ballistic. Got out the vehicle and just went ballistic. What would cause a person to do that? Think about it. Now, let's say that there were 10 other cars that were sitting there. Unbeknownst to them, they weren't looking at the thing to see that the thing had turned green, that the pump was open. Or did they just expect somebody else in front of them to go ahead and in it because somebody was waiting for anybody, and that person who was in another line came out and he went and he got into it because nobody else was doing it? Who was wrong? How was the other person wrong? Because there's a norm that's in place, is an unspoken norm that happens here. We're in line, no matter how long that pump sits open, right? We need to start blowing horns. Everybody starts blowing the horn, but nobody moves. Somebody thinks they should move, but they don't want to move because the next person may. Maybe the person in the other car just kind of like just dozed off or something like that. What happened? It's a whole lot of things that go on in that place, but how everybody reacts. Really, they should be looking at why they're reacting that way. They think people are stupid. No, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do stupid things. Yeah. Can't somebody else do something stupid? Can I call it stupid? Does that mean that there's some trauma because I said somebody is stupid? You got to figure these things out. You got to figure these things out. Right? Back to the article. This is so common that we would be an outlier if this didn't bother us, which I just got finished talking about. Right? But while most people find this behavior annoying due to the disrespect and entitlement it displays, let's call it what it is, right? Because you could have put a signal on. You didn't have to just do it this way, but you did, right? You could have caused an accident. You could have got yourself killed. You could have killed us. You could have killed other people on the highway because of what you just did. So that's why I say, we would be an outlier to not say that it shouldn't bother us because it will. But it's how you react to it. But while most people find this behavior annoying due to the disrespect and entitlement it displays, they are able to recognize that the arrogant action was more about the person and less about them. Others, especially those whose childhood wounds were activated, become extremely upset or even enraged. This is because they internalize the behavior, bringing up feelings of not being seen or heard in childhood, being pushed aside, or being walked over. That's deep. Because you really have to ask the question. When you see these road rage incidents that take place, why is it that deep for you? That becoming violent, that getting back, acting vengefully, chasing that car down, trying to get up next to them so you can throw up the finger, so you can throw a cup of soda at them, so you can cuss them out, so you can satisfy whatever it is that's within you that's taking place in that moment that you need to express to that person. Would it not be easier to just yell and scream in the car and cuss them out in the car without having to chase them down? I mean, in the state of Florida, everybody carries a gun, legal and illegal. So everybody got a gun. Then toned down a lot since that happened too. You need to know that. A lot of nonsense done toned down a lot in Florida. Yeah, people ain't that quick to run the mouth and to be stepping to people because everybody can carry a gun. That's our constitutional right anyway. But you understand what I'm saying? Why? Why are you that angry? Who do you think you are that you can do that? And this is what it's talking about, the arrogance of that. It's just arrogance that you think that you can do that. Cut somebody off, and and if you look at response, your reaction to the person who just cut you off, that they just put their hand up like that, my bad, you know, if you know if it's not done out of arrogance, right? Now, if I'm trying to get over, and I've been trying to get over, and I've been putting my signal on, and I got to accelerate to get in front of you, I'm not going to say my bad. I'm telling you like that right now. I'm not. I'm not, because you didn't let me in. You saw I was trying to get in. So now I'm getting in because I tried to do it the right way, right? But if I cut somebody off, because it happens, sometimes you just got to get over, you just got to get in, and it just happens. I'm gonna put my hand up, so they can say, "Hey, listen, my bad." I put the window down. My bad. Sorry. They come up next to me. Sometimes I acknowledge them. Just like I told, yeah, like if you're coming up next to, they really won't accept an apology. Most people who act that way because you're pursuing something else. That's something else. I'm gonna just tell you like this. I've had a couple times where I may have cut somebody off or so on and so forth. And I put down the way. Listen, I'm really sorry. I was telling the dude, yo, dude, I apologize, but I had to get over. You know, and not blaming them like, well, you should have let me know. I apologize. I had to get over that. Dude just didn't let it go. He just went on and on, and and a lot of times when you go to put down your window, they don't know what you're going to do. You might be apologizing, but they don't. Oh, I'm gonna get away from this person. They've got to shoot me. It's just the world we live in. But it's arrogance when you just do that. But it's not about you. It's about them. But you've made it about you. You personalized it. That they attacked me. They attacked Sabir. How dare they? I'm Sabir, Alim, host of Daddy's Right Here Live. Don't they know? Right? And some people take that position. Law enforcement's real good for that. They'll do it and be unapologetic about doing it. A lot of them are used to driving in the squad cars. You're driving your personal vehicle. You still do it. But you validate it arrogantly because you're a police officer, because you're law enforcement. That doesn't validate it. You're wrong. Politicians, those who drive their own cars, right? There's just a lot of arrogant people that think because they have certain titles, certain social statuses, that they can do that. But you can't. But it's not about them. It's about you. Right? Number 2 on the list. Being interrupted can trigger the wound of being talked over by caregivers and treated like our words do not matter. We have all sat in a meeting with people who interrupt each other. And while many of us would agree that interrupting is rude, we vary in our level of frustration at the behavior when it happens to us. If you are unable to let it go and instead become confrontational or aggressive, it could be that this behavior is activating an inner wound of being talked over and treated like your opinions do not matter. Yeah, we just talked about that a minute ago, right? I have something to say. And you can be in a room full of people, right? And this is the dysfunction of social behavior, because when you get a bunch of people together, people tend to all be having different conversations. People be talking, and somebody may be clicked and up with another person or two having a conversation, but it's something that you want to say. You know, it used the example here of being, in a meeting, and when you have a meeting, and usually the meeting, it has order to it, but you keep raising your hand, you keep wanting to talk, you keep wanting to say something, and then you have somebody who wants to interject their information, what it is that they were saying, or they want to add clarity to what they just said, or they want to dismiss your idea because it's their idea that they believe is the best idea. It's just a whole lot of reasons why this can be happening. But what what we really need to focus on is what is happening inside of you and why is it happening? Why is it happening? Why are you feeling the way you're feeling right now? And why is it elevating within you? Because it's not that deep. You can just sit there with your hand up, and when they decide that they finally want to hush up and listen, then all's eyes on you, and this is your opportunity, right? Okay, I'll wait till y'all get done. All right. Okay. May I? So, right? You understand? Listen, it may be very difficult to do, right? But if you try it and you see the outcome and you make it a habit of approaching things in that manner, you find better results. Trust me. I can come home and I can tell my wife, share with her and express to her how I feel about a particular thing, how I feel about what somebody did or didn't do. But when I talk to that person, I don't talk to that person from the same frame, because what I'm doing when I'm venting is I'm purging myself of the negative perception, of the negative emotion to it, because I have to approach this, first of all, professionally, right? Second of all, unoffensively, right? Because I don't need to offend anybody. I just need for them to hear what it is I have to say. But until I acknowledge the fact that I'm pissed about it, until I begin to explore the reason why I'm pissed about it, right? I'm going to keep finding myself with the same roadblocks. So I need to formulate a habit of, you know what? This is how you do this. So this is the tool that you use, before approaching situations. You have a sounding board. You have somebody who you go and vent to. It's okay that you're angry. It's okay that you're upset. It's okay that you have some negative feelings about this. Fix it. Because you can't fix the person. You can't fix that situation. You can fix you. Because you have control, authority, and power over you. Where did this come from? Where did it come from? Because you are unnecessarily enraged. There's no need for you to be as enraged about this as you are. And the sad part about it is you keep finding yourself in situations, in good situations, and you keep destroying them. It's self-sabotage. We talked about that already. We talked about that in the last show about self-sabotage. You self-sabotage because you don't want to take a look at you. Because you don't want to take a look at you. And that's the problem with a person like me, a person who is has intellectual intelligence. Because I constantly make myself aware of myself, because I'm constantly working towards happiness, towards peace within. Right? Others who are not in that same realm of living, others who don't share that same worldview, right, can negatively perceive it as an attack upon them. Again, you personalized it. You personalized it. What am I seeking? What do you know about me as a person? So because I'm just direct about things, because I'm just clear cut about things, because I'm black and white in a lot of things, I know what gray looks like. I have gray areas. I've been married multiples of times, and they haven't been short lived. They've been short because they're supposed to be for life. But I give people a chance. I work with people. I say, hey, listen, what we need to, and you listen. So every opportunity has been given to make those adjustments, but you just can't keep blowing smoke, right? You can't just keep thinking that the other person is going to just keep sitting by and not saying something and not taking any action, because now they're living your life. And it's easier when you can get people to succumb to your way of living, because then you don't have to change anything. You don't have to change anything, because ultimately you've manipulated the situation to be fit yourself. You're happy being that way. You're comfortable being that way. There are some people who are happy being unhappy. There's some people who are happy being miserable. That's what that dysfunction that they came up in. They just embraced it. They just saturate themselves with it. They don't seek change. They don't seek to do anything different. They want somebody to just accept those things. That is not love. Stop saying that love is unconditional. There's no such thing as unconditional love. Stop it. There is a condition. There is a condition. So stop acting like there's not. Somebody doesn't reciprocate. Somebody, doesn't make changes that you think that they should do, to make this a healthier situation. The conditions, the conditions, the conditions are there. There's no such thing as unconditional love. There are conditions, right? So, you have to look at all of those things, because at some point in time, if people are not growing together, then eventually somebody's going. You just don't sit back and just let things, and I'm talking about things that are detriment to the relationship. I'm not talking about because you put the toilet paper on backwards, I'll put it on frontwards. I'm not talking about because you don't pick up behind yourself. I'm not talking about that stuff. That's just it's a peeve about it, but it's just how you live. It's a pet peeve, not based on childhood trauma, but based on how I live. I don't like to have. My mother didn't have a messy house either. She didn't play that. You weren't playing in her living room and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it is. Now that I've said it, maybe it is. You see how this thing works, man? Maybe it is. You know, my penmanship, how I speak, how I conduct myself, the rigidity of learning that my mother put upon us. There you go. See, but um, you have to look at all those things, right? You have to look at all those things, but you got to dig, man. You can't just sit back and keep blaming somebody else. You can't keep seeing yourself in one marriage after the next, one relationship after the next, one job after the next, simply because you haven't come to terms with your own childhood trauma and sought resolve. And sought resolve. We got time for one more. Um, Number 3 on this list of pet peeves that could be a result of childhood trauma. Number 3, eating a meal with someone on their phone can trigger the wound of being ignored. How many times? And let's not even just talk about eating a meal, right? I mean, that's the worst. We're sitting down together eating a meal and you on your phone. We're eating together at the table. You got your phone in your hand. You got your phone in your hand. You're on the phone. Right? Now, I understand a phone call may come through and say, hey, listen, we're having dinner right now. Let me call you back if it's not an emergency. Or letting it go to voicemail. You got a voicemail for a reason. Sometimes a call has to be made. Sometimes you have to respond to something. Sometimes you have to check, you know, um, an email. Like if I'm working and we're out to lunch, on a lunch date, but I'm still working, I got to check those things, right? But when you're sitting down and you're eating with someone and they're sitting down with your phone, how attentive are they being to you? Let alone the food. But we're going out to eat. You're sitting there on your phone while we're eating. We're not talking about while we're waiting for the meal. right? Waiting for the meal, sometimes if you run out of conversation, that happens. But try to have conversation. But a lot of times, okay, well, what we'll typically do is we'll play the game that, those places they have the games, we'll play those kind of games like that and wait for the food, something like that. But many of us, to the article, many of us have that friend who is constantly on their phone. This is what we're talking about. Who is constantly on their phone, right? You could be in the middle of a deep, soul bearing conversation and she answers an unknown number because you never know, which completely changes the flow and energy of the conversation. This is extremely frustrating, but if you become overly upset by this, it could bring up feelings of being ignored and dismissed from childhood. It said it could. It's a list of things that could be as a result of. And again, my childhood was just that. Yeah, not my childhood. Well, you don't really think much about your childhood. And the things that you tend to recall are usually the happier moments, or the extreme side of it is the most undesirable moments, right? But it's the things in between that you kind of minimize. Don't look at those kind of relations. Don't look at the relationship between you and your caretakers and see those kind of things and how you were groomed. Just want to look at those things. Well, you can. Where'd it come from? Oh, well, I just don't like nobody to do. Where did it come from? Well, I just don't like when people say, I get that. Where did it come from? Period. Ask yourself that. You don't like something for a reason. You react like this for a reason. It's not, oh, well, I just, and that's just how I am. Why are you just that way? Why do you continue to be that way when you know it causes difficulties for you? It ends relationships. It causes you to lose your job. It causes you to always be angry and balled up in a knot. It causes you to feel this way. Everybody else is going on with their lives. Everything else is hunky dory. While you walking around with a wedgie. Why? And asking those why questions causes more rift between you and that person. I just want you to look at why. I'm not going to own it. I'm not going to take responsibility for why you're acting this angry. You're not going to turn around and tell me you're that damn angry at something I just said or did, not said or not did. You're that angry. And that it has to do with me. Nah. That's manipulation. That's you taking the victim role. And then people who do that, they take the victim role and they start crying. Or they start acting like, you treat them so bad because they don't like your reaction to their stuff. I'm not going to own your stuff. You've known me for a year. You've known me for 2 weeks and you're acting like this and you're telling me that it's because of me that you're acting like this? No, I'm not going to own that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'm sure not going to stick around with you reacting this way. I'm not going to accept that behavior. I'm not going to tolerate that behavior. And I'm going to say something about that behavior. You understand what I'm saying? Don't own other people's stuff. People who don't want to change, that's what they do. They deflect. They pulled out a laundry list of things that happened before that have nothing to do with this right now because we're talking about this particular activity, this incident right now. Don't start bringing out the laundry list of similar things. We're talking right now, right here, right now. Because if you chose to harbor it, that's on you. That's not on me. It's not on me. For real. We need to start taking a firmer approach at looking at ourselves, at self-care. Because when we allow people to just do as they darn well please, when we allow people to go unchecked on their stuff, regardless of anything, right? Don't take ownership for somebody else's stuff. In the end, we suffer. And we suffer more when we don't address why we feel that way. Because there's two sides of things happening here. The person who's reacting negatively, harshly, aggressively, there's something going on with their trauma, then they're triggering your trauma. So is it me or is it you? Is it because both parties are being triggered? And whoever's doing the less work, right, will come out on the better end because now I'm messed up because I'm acting on the trigger that I'm aware of. But the way you just talk to me, like, wow, that so like I'm this is what happens in relationships, folks, when people are not willing to challenge and confront themselves. This is the condition of love. This is the condition of everlasting love. If you are not willing to confront yourself, right, that's both of you. It's going to be short lived. That's just the reality of life. So you have to look at your childhood. You have to look at how did my mother deal with this? How did my father deal with this when it came to me? How did Aunt Mary deal with me? People who are like caretakers around you, people's adults, who you are around, because the focus is on adults. Because when you're a child, when you're an infant, when you're a toddler, you're looking at these big people differently, right? And if they all live in the same household, you're finding your way in the pack, where you fit in the pack. But it's these other two big people, the mom and the dad, who you have most of the focus on. And if it's a single parent home, you're focusing on that single parent because that's the one that seems to be doing everything. The other person, they act in a way that's not like that other person. If the primary is acting like the teenager, then we got a problem. Then that's where the dysfunction perception comes in because now I don't know who the parent is because they both act in this particular way. So who is the primary? And then you hear the term mom, you don't know what mom means because you haven't read the dictionary, because you only know this is mom based on mom saying that this is mom. And you know dad because dad is saying dad, say dad. Well, what does dad mean? I can say it. I've said it. Now, what does that mean? So now we go into a whole thing about language. Anywho, you got to look at you. We'll follow back up next week on these 10 pet peeves that could be based on childhood trauma. It came from somewhere, folks. It came from somewhere. And you need to begin to, look for, well, where did it come from? I can't tell you where it came from. But I can only tell you that it's a good possibility that it came from childhood. It came from childhood. And, until you start looking at it, you're going to find yourself in the same situations over and over again. It's just not going to change. It's not going to change. It's going to be the same shenanigans. You're not going to see any growth. Um, that's just how it goes. We're at the hour. I am your host, as always, Sabir Aleem. Thank you for tuning in. Uh, just remember, this show is no longer on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been replaced with X, so you can find Daddy's Right Here Live every Saturday at 9 a.m. on Instagram, on Facebook, on what else? Where else am I? I have like 4 different places: Instagram, Facebook, X. Oh, and my Super Early Educational Station on YouTube. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for the continued support. I'm gonna see you next Saturday, 9 a.m. Y'all have a great one. When darkness falls, fantasy takes flight. Chasing the thrill and the release. Touching girls my age. Kiss me. Little girls weren't even ready when they bed at night. Holding the teddy. Love, not in the waiting young boy. Body invasion. Now you taught me when you want me. Yeah, I would get it till that you want me.
13 virgin, pristine conversion, Adele virgin, sex acts, conversion. Now I'm feeling like I had no choice.
Get her out of my head. Boys, I'm chasing tail, running the streets. I want love no more. I'm a heartbeat. Since you learn me, toss and turn me. You wanted sex, cause you're lonely. No clue what you do. Both of us together don't make two. This ain't fiction, a sex addiction. Fame fiction, it's a mission. Unbeknownst to the doer, the outcome is dramatic skewer.
So confusing, but amusing, why we using?
Our souls are fusing, not just delay. So you say, don't value me, my heart's in the way.
Finding the balance between love and sex.
Mind befuddled like I'm under a head. She reinforced inside of me. Between these stars is where you wanna be. 13 virgin,
Pristine conversion,
Adele,
conversion,
sex ass,
conversion, rejection, body selection, the love for the person, touch and erection, easy, latex squeeze it, a need for the flesh, kiss me,
what's love got to do with it? You want hot semen, I'm spewing it. Took away my virginity, having sex with a child, traumatic infinity. 13 virgin,
pristine conversion, Adele conversion, sex acts conversion, 13 virgin, pristine conversion, Adele conversion, sex acts conversion. Don't be afraid.
Thank